Hi everyone. Everywhere you look, people are talking about AI taking our jobs. The headlines are very dramatic: layoffs, automations, and fear of becoming obsolete. But if we really stop and think about this, is AI really the reason for these job cuts? Or is the story a little bit more complicated? Can AI actually replace the most competent or experienced employees within the firm? Can we reassure ourselves and make ourselves irreplaceable for the companies? I'm aware of many videos available on this subject right now, but I wanted to make this video about my personal view and experience within the industry. I've graduated from uni. I received my chartered accountancy qualification and have worked within the industry for more than 10 years now. In this time, I have undertaken various roles from data analyst to accountant and software dev. This allowed me to participate in numerous automation projects and initiatives, from building VBA applications in Excel and writing macros to building API endpoints, web apps, and desktop applications. I've also built various RPA bot automations, workflow automations using software such as ClickView, Power BI, Tableau. One thing I can definitely confirm is that all companies are always looking for ways to automate stuff. And this is the business school's textbook and accountancy syllabus. If your company does not use a chance to automate its procedures or processes, and its competitors will do this, this will end up this ends up making the other company gain actual advantage over your company, and this drives your company, your business, out of business, out of industry. This is the survival of the fittest analogy that really does apply within the industry. Now, here in the video, I wanted to summarize and gather my thoughts on the subject. Is AI truly replacing us right now within the industry? So, kind of in order to carry this discussion, just wanted to bring a few points to start with. So, the real drivers of layoffs, right? I mean, sure, we're hearing about these companies kind of saying that they're thinking about using more of AI, I don't know, reducing the amount of roles and stuff. But from my understanding, it's a lot more obvious that things that impact these job losses is really the economy. If you think about it, the cost of living crisis, the costs have gone up, the petrol has gone up, the oil has gone up, the gas prices have gone up, so everything else is becoming more expensive, and the interest rates, the inflation's kind of drowning business right now. And it does make sense that companies are reducing the workforce, and it's smelling more like the recession. Exactly how it happened in 2008 when the interest rates, well, actually, I can't remember what was happening with interest rates back then, but the situation was the businesses were struggling and they were just shedding the workforce. Exactly similar analogy could be drawn right now, I think. And for the other point I have here is the risks and data and trusts. So. Whenever people within the business environments, companies I work with, whenever they consider automations, they always talk about data security. So companies are really scared of trusting their data or sending their data somewhere to a different API point outside of the company where they cannot protect and ensure security of their data, of their information. So imagine if your boss wanted to replace you with, let's say, ChatGPT, that means all the requests out of your company would have to be shipping or being sent to ChatGPT server, right? So that means that presents a huge security risk for the company. Now, I don't think your company would be very happy sending private requests and private proprietary information from their laptop to a ChatGPT server. This would require at least shipping ChatGPT model to on-prem, right? Something that would be operating within your company, where ChatGPT would agree to release their model and say, okay, ChatGPT model will be operating within your network, and that would ensure that the data is not going anywhere and it's kept secure. So that is a huge barrier right now as to why I think ChatGPT would not be able to replace you. Another thing that I wanted to mention here, trust. So, I don't know if you know this, but these LLMs, for instance, ChatGPT, right? They they're effectively LLM models that could hallucinate, right? So, for instance, if you ask a general LLM a question about something specific, right? Uh, who is this individual? Or if you ask a very specific question, which the LLM or ChatGPT was not trained on, it might reply to you that it doesn't know the answer, or it might just make up the answer, make up some of the facts, and that is called hallucination, where LLM effectively tries to reply the answer how it was taught on millions and millions of conversations or articles, and it just kind of just creates some kind of a flow of information, flow of a conversation going in response to your question, and it doesn't actually use the real facts. Now, I mean, I know that machine learning engineers are working on this, so they are slowly trying to fix it, but I do think that there is no way to kind of protect yourself against that, against hallucinations. So would companies really trust unquestionably the LLM that could be kind of providing hallucinated answers? Not so sure about that. That provides a huge barrier for LLM to replace you. Human example, right? So in order to answer this question, is AI helping us or replacing us? I wanted to provide this huge example that I've recently realized. So my nan, right, is not very technical, and before, for her to be able to open her shop or start a business online, she would need to find an engineer that would have to explain everything to her, make things happen for her, and she would have to pay him, right? Now, she would be able to do this by working with LLM, with ChatGPT, for instance, or any other provider. And what this means is this human example truly kind of shows how ChatGPT or AI really elevates you, and it allows you to do things that you would not be able to do before. So pretty much now, if you're watching this video and if you've never opened a cupcake shop or a donut shop, you would be able to do it using ChatGPT or any other AI. And that AI will serve as your either developer, marketing consultant, lead generator, you name it, whatever it is that you're struggling with. You'll be able to provide you strategies, answers, for any of the questions, pretty much any of the questions that you might have. The question is, would you be able to phrase your questions the right way? Would you be able to ask the right questions? Oh yeah, ChatGPT 5 versus AGI. So we all know what AGI is. That's pretty much like a Skynet, that stage of AI that allows AI to become self-aware pretty much. And ChatGPT 5, which is the latest version of ChatGPT, everyone was super hyped about it, but unfortunately it never delivered. People are really disappointed right now from what I'm seeing, from what I'm hearing, and from what I've been working with, because I do use ChatGPT, and I've had access to ChatGPT 5 recently, and it seems like a really good network. I can't complain, but people apparently were expecting it to be more towards AGI side of things, which apparently it isn't. Um, Still a good tool though. So what this point really demonstrates is that our hype about AI replacing our jobs, it could be us overreacting, just like we're overhyped about AGI almost coming through, almost coming over. But it looks like clearly the professionals that develop ChatGPT are not really there yet, right? Next slide, what do we have? What humans bring that AI can't? Right, so my argument here is that we as human individuals at workplace do so much more than what AI and potentially AGI could do. So the first point here, AI does not reflect, contemplate, draw on lived experiences the way people do. And that is so true. Allow me to bring it to perspective of workplace. So when we at work, we actually process things in the sense like we hearing how people handle problems, we draw our own conclusions, probably from our childhood, from how we were learning things at school, universities, whatever, and from previous experience. And as that experience accumulates within us, we are processing it differently. We picking up more useful points, things that have worked in the past, and we're adjusting our practices, right? And AI does not do that. AI is merely learn something within its weights, within its coefficients, of which it has billions, trillions, and whatever. And whenever you ask it a question, it just provides you whatever it's got stored in the weights. Provides it slightly differently every time because it's based on probabilities and stuff, but overall, it doesn't really think, right? It just uh, it's got if you think of LLMs or ChatGPT as a huge massive formula with trillions of coefficients and weights and parameters, it's just got information, it provides you that information, and that's it. It's not able to build an argument, or kind of trace the evolution of the thoughts, of the thinking. Although they are trying to come up with chain of thought patterns, and they still trying to get ChatGPT or LLMs to think, but they're failing. We, on the other hand, we are not failing. We're doing really well. We've strived from doing accountancy and finance on a piece of paper, filing invoices on paper, and now we've transformed our operations successfully, although we've done it over decades. Took us some time, but we're using computers now, successfully automating stuff, building workflows, connecting to databases, and etc. The next point, AI can't navigate the messy reality of large companies, where systems are glued together with decades of complexity, undocumented failures, and quirky dependencies that only long-term employees understand. Now, this brings us to experience, right? So, every company I've ever worked for had a legacy kind of a structure or infrastructure. So companies invest in certain software types, software projects. They build those software structures, right? ERP systems, SAP, Oracle, whatever. And then they acquire smaller companies or bigger companies that have different setups. And then these different setups from different companies, they end up being glued together into kind of a Frankenstein sort of a setup, where in one company, if you wanted to just summarize sales or financial ledger, instead of just saying, okay, that's my company, I would like to see my sales, I would like to just have a simple table and run data analysis on that. It's not how it works in a real world, although that's how probably it should be, ideally. And I'm sure every CEO or CFO would always say, I would like to have a simple setup, please, so that I'm able to interrogate my data, run my reports, but that's not how it works, unfortunately. All companies is a combination of Frankenstein sort of setups where everything is complex. For you to run the sales, you need to go to this team to pull the sales for this sort of region or area, and then you have to go to the other one, and then there's always more complex setups where you have to ask several teams, get authorization, so it's not really that simple. AI would really struggle with this. In fact, AI probably would give you the most optimal solution. It would tell you to scrape your entire setup and start from scratch, because it would be prudent, but unfortunately companies would not be willing to spend that much money on this sort of changes or improvements. And this is where we as humans are irreplaceable. We people that stayed with a company for a long time are able to know how things work, and they'd be able to immediately look at the initiatives that would be fine, they would be workable within the current setup, and they'd be able to say, okay, this initiative, it's terrible, it sucks, it's never going to work, and they would be able to explain that very easily as to why it would not be able to work. And yeah, there's nothing AI would be able to do. Right. So the next point I have: projects require not just technical solutions, but negotiations, testing, approvals, balancing personalities across teams. AI can't sit in a meeting, read the room, and find consensus. Right, that's a really good point. So, whenever, so the companies I worked with, and the project management meetings I was participating in. Now, whenever massive initiatives are being introduced, there's always like a huge team, huge set of meetings happening, normally virtual, happening between various teams, various individuals, cross-functional teams, right? So, for instance, let's say you decided to overhaul and change your entire ERP system, or improve it, or add something to it. So that's going to require IT folks from various departments to be participating, to be reviewing security, to be reviewing databases, to be reviewing access privileges. So there's already a team of that. Then you're going to have developers who you will be telling about the changes you want to make. Now, developers in IT will be obviously communicating with each other, working out the best way of doing things. Then if you're talking about ERP systems, that means operations. Operations will be the folks that will want to hear on how things are going to have to be worked out. At some point, one of these teams will put the brakes on, and it'll say, whoa, this is not how it's going to work. For our operations, for our accounting team, we have a special procedure, and that would require changing, and it would require potentially testing. It may not work, right? So there's these complex negotiations or team meetings, or kind of chains of meetings that will have to happen. And that complicates things. I don't think AI would be able to grasp this super huge context that would kind of that we're constantly dealing with whenever we work in the corporate environment. Once again, I believe AI would contribute a really valuable solution, potentially, thought or plan that would require fully redesigning how we do things, but senior stakeholders such as CFOs, CEOs, they do not want to rely on such opinions, and even if they do, they would want to hear the explanation, and I don't think AI would be able to provide that to them. Normally, how things work, like I said, project teams, they include individuals in the teams from different departments, from different functions, and those have to collaborate. And yeah, that's how things get done. So this is why humans are irreplaceable, and probably this will stay that way. The next slide, where AI falls short. So, shortcomings of AI. So, LLMs or AIs, they hallucinate. We've spoken about this. If AI attack does not know the answer, it may respond by saying it doesn't know, or it may hallucinate. So, in essence, AI from this perspective becomes really unreliable, and in business, especially in huge corporations where there's millions of billions of US dollars or British pounds or euros are at stake, that's not going to work. No one's going to be able to approve providing data, sensitive data, proprietary data to LLM that can hallucinate, who can twist facts potentially. So therein lies a huge problem. I believe we've previously covered this. Now, the next point here is LLMs struggle, or AI struggles with context over long, complex histories. Yes, so if you ever worked with ChatGPT or any other LLMs, you know that there is a window where you type in your little message where you describe the issue, then you ask underlying question, potentially provide some files. So all of the stuff that you provide is a context, right? Or prompt, right? It's a prompt or context that AI uses to generate your answer. So sometimes you're able to quickly write out the question and say, ooh, how do I do this? And LLM might be able to help, but oftentimes you have to bring in more information, right? Because LLMs or ChatGPTs, they trained really, as soon as they released, as soon as they trained, they become obsolete because the new things happen. If you ask ChatGPT about the latest iPhone rumors, right, it probably wouldn't be able to know anything because it's not been trained on that data. So you have to provide some context and say, look, there's this article, I'm gonna give it to you, read it, etc., about the latest iPhone or whatever, in order to make ChatGPT aware of what you're asking. So in your corporate settings, sometimes one article would not be enough. Sometimes you have to provide the history. Sometimes you have to do email chains from this team, from that team. Then you have to provide some, previous outcomes of what happened, so that LLM would be aware of everything. ChatGPT would be aware of all those things that happened in the past, the history, the legacy systems, and all the issues, errors, and then based on that you might want to ask the question. And this is another problem of LLMs. The larger the context, the more you use up the context limit, up to its limit, because some LLMs have strict limits on how much you can put into the prompt, into context. And based on that, they might not cope with the task. They might not be able to provide the most optimum solution. Yeah, so there is a huge shortcoming, that they have. LLMs can misinterpret managers' requests, suggesting the optimal solution when the human one is what really matters. So, like I said, imagine you're in the meeting with your team, and AI agent is participating in your meeting, and then after the meeting, you're kind of saying, look, based on the notes, based on everything you hear, what is the best way? What's the best outcome for us? LLM potentially. Because it's like a gray area. Nobody can look into LLM and find out why it's doing it, why the weights are making ChatGPT spit out this answer in particular. Anyways, your ChatGPT after the meeting might say, listen, the best way to do it is to shut down this factory altogether. Just open another one somewhere in, I don't know, in another country next door. If LLM comes up with that answer or outcome, CFO or CFO might be willing to disagree with it and kind of say, look, this is not something we would be willing to consider. It might be the optimum solution, but once again, it might require huge investment or huge outlay in terms of handling redundancies or decommissioning the factories and stuff, but that can easily happen It can happen, and you would not be able to argue with LLM. In fact, if you were to ask LLM the same question once again, it might give you a different answer because it's answer based on probabilities for the next word. So all these inconsistencies, they kind of come up with huge red flags for the senior management. Senior management will not be willing to replace us in its entirety. The next point here I've got is ChatGPT or LLMs are trained on public data, and companies run on private proprietary knowledge that has to be constantly updated. So this kind of brings us back to the point where, in order to build ChatGPT-like systems, they have to pre-train them. They have to feed it a lot of information about what's happening in the world, and they have to keep this knowledge updating ChatGPT with the new knowledge every time. So you have to keep retraining the models. Let's say there's a new standard that's been introduced. In order for LLM to really understand it and have its weights changed to incorporate that new knowledge, you have to keep retraining it, which is fine. It could be done, but you'll still need a lot of people that would have to review this knowledge, right? They would have to review how it's phrased, before feeding it to your special ChatGPT model that you would be running on-prem for your company. You would have to keep retraining it all the time. As soon as, especially if you're a global corporation, things change all the time. Something might change in Europe, in Asia, in America. Tariffs, taxes, and stuff. They're constantly changing, and that creates problems. And that means you have to keep updating and stay on top of AI, right? So yeah, so that's where AI really falls short, and we as humans will still be so much more superior than AI. And, the case might be actually made here that, we as human beings might have to be asked to work more on these points that kind of where AI falls short, and, this is where we are irreplaceable. Now, on to the next slide. So, kind of the message I'm trying to bring across here is a very positive one. So, kind of in the way AI and ChatGPT, they kind of empowering us as individuals at work. So, let me start with this first point. It can show you how to do something you've never tried before, broadening your horizon. So, constantly, all the time, I keep following procedures at work. And whenever I look on Google or ask AI how to do something in general, I always find better solutions. And in fact, sometimes these solutions are, for me, they're outside of the box, and I'm surprised that I've never thought of this before, and that does broaden my horizons and allows me to think from a different perspective on my problems, and that makes me stronger and empowers me big time, because I'm able to sometimes when I don't have expertise in something, I'm able to quickly summarize something, understand it a lot easier, and that makes me a better employee, I think, than I was previously. It can save you time by automating boilerplate coding, routine analysis, or documentation. So truly, whenever you go to these new ChatGPT thingies, you able to dump files into this ChatGPT, give it the file, ask it to run some basic analysis, do some summarization, and that is something that sometimes we have to do ourselves. And it's nice to kind of have this agent, right, ChatGPT or whatever, that you delegate on, right, that you rely on to do these simple tasks that save you time. And by saving time, they give you this gives you an opportunity to develop, grow, learn things that you want to do, get involved in projects that you've never had time to do. So that kind of example of elevating you, right? It does elevate you, it does make you a better person. It's just the way how you're going to find out how are you going to work out what you can actually delegate on AI? Are you going to be able to test it to see it's doing a good job? Are you going to be able to tweak your ChatGPT or LLM to do it better or properly? That's what the question lies. The next point, it can enable you to become a supervisor of agents, coordinating a network of automations rather than doing every step yourself. So yeah, so sometimes at work in finance, accounting, software dev, you have these huge workflows that you have to follow, huge procedures and stuff. What if you could master a network of agents, kind of link them together so that they would work, feed information to each other, you would just oversee it as a process. So that technically makes you a manager of AI agents, which is great, right? Because it could be beneficial for you, beneficial for the company. The question is of the skill. Do you have the right level of skill for this, right? So once again, another really good case of empowerment and elevation. How AI gives you a chance to elevate yourself and progress. And the final point here, because AI understands language, it gives you the power to automate text-driven workflows, report summaries, communications that previously required hours of human effort. Now, I have this brilliant example of Excel, right? So Excel started off 30 years ago, I believe, and it's actually how we've replaced paper now, right? We're not doing things on paper as much. We're using Excel and Microsoft Office. Now, Excel normally works off the formulas or sometimes VBA scripts. Now, in formulas, you have to hard code the logic. Yeah, if A equals B, then something happens in this cell or that cell. Now, you are able to use AI to understand the semantic knowledge of the words or phrases and stuff. So if you're able truly to master this, you should be able to simplify your workflows, communications massively, and it's a huge tool. So like, instead of having this Frankenstein kind of a formula within one Excel cell, you can just easily use AI to just perform analysis on the input that you get and say, what is it really telling me? If it's telling me that the tax, it needs to be recalculated, then obviously trigger this workflow or program. If everything's fine, please submit this to authorities or whatever, right? In Excel, to do something similar, you would have to really be creative in terms of how you organize it, and it would still not be perfect. Trust me, I've done years on Excel automations, and it's really not that perfect, although there's many things you can really do with Excel. So yeah, so my message here is kind of positive. I think in accounting, finance, tax departments, I think AI truly will not be able to replace anyone. You probably will need to work kind of at some point to develop your skills, to learn how to work with AI, but you will be truly irreplaceable as long as you work on yourself. So my kind of take on this is extremely positive, although there are some worrying news, as we always see. Anyways, thank you for today. Have a great day, and please let me know what you think about my video, my thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And feel free to share some examples from your industries and your side of things. Thank you.